While sleeping during the night, a parasite attempted to enter his body through his nose in order to control his brain. But since Shinichi squeezed it before it got very far inside, it ended up burrowing into his right arm instead. While on his way home the next day, Shinichi tries to save a little girl from being run over by a car, and he witnesses his right hand stop the car. Confused, he tries to stab his hand with a knife, but the parasite reveals its form on his hand and breaks the knife. Shinichi is now forced to cooperate with the parasite while keeping it a secret from his parents. Later, Shinichi's parasite directs him to a dog which has been inhabited by another parasite, and he is shown that the only way to kill it is to destroy the heart of its host. Shinichi's parasite gives itself the name Migi, meaning right. After Shinichi impresses Satomi Maruno by making the winning shot in a basketball game at school, Kazuki Nagi becomes jealous and picks a fight with Shinichi outside. Shinichi recoils in fear, but Migi forces him to fight back and punch Kazuki. Shinichi later hears from Yuko Tachikawa that gruesome mincemeat murders are being reported in various locations around the world. He learns from Migi that parasites practice cannibalism for survival. Migi senses a parasite nearby controlling a man named Mr. B, and Shinichi heads to an alley to lead him away from other people. Mr. B invites Migi to join him in order to extend their lifelines, but Migi chooses to kill Mr. B and remain with Shinichi. The next day, after Shinichi treats Satomi to pancakes, they see 3 thugs throwing stones at a cat buried in a playground sandbox. Shinichi intervenes and stops them, surprising Satomi by his apparent change in personality. During a school assembly, Shinichi is dismayed to discover that their new math teacher, Ryoko Tamiya, is a parasite, and aware of his secret. After class, Shinichi privately meets Ryoko in the counselor's office, where she declares that she is not interested in fighting and asks him to meet her after school. They meet at a restaurant where Ryoko introduces her partner, Mr. A, and reveals that she is pregnant, establishing that parasites are capable of reproducing humans. The next day during class, Mr. A enters the school campus, attacking staff and forcing the students to evacuate. Migi suggests using the crowd of students as a shield to ambush Mr. A, but Shinichi disagrees and runs to the top floor to lure Mr. A away from the students. Migi reminds Shinichi that they must fight together as they're confronted by Mr. A. As Migi and Mr. A exchange rapid attacks, Shinichi takes the opportunity to puncture Mr. A in the chest with a metal table leg. Mortally wounded, Mr. A tries to find Ryoko, but she sets off an explosion with gas tanks to kill him, and she escapes to safety. The pregnant and unmarried Ryoko is forced to resign from the school. Shinichi encounters her as she leaves, and she explains that every living organism follows a directive, and parasites were born to feast on humans. Meanwhile, Miki experiments with separating itself for short periods from Shinichi's body. Shinichi's parents, Kazuyuki and Nobuko, plan a trip to the beach, but although Shinichi worries about their safety because of the mincemeat murders, he reluctantly agrees that they should go. Following comments from his parents and friends, Shinichi suspects that he is undergoing psychological changes. When he sees a gang of delinquents led by Mitsuo assaulting Kazuki, Shinichi steps in and stops them but takes a beating. Before the gang leaves, a female gang member named Kana Kimishima detects something frightening about his nature. After school, Mitsuo and his gang abduct Satomi and Shinichi tries to intervene, but he is no match for Mitsuo because he refuses help from Migi. However, a senior student named Kamijo arrives with a large group of students to deal with Mitsuo and his gang. Later, after Satomi leaves, Kana shows up to apologize, but when she shakes hands, she again detects something strange, and Migi deduces that Kana can sense parasite wavelengths. Meanwhile, a parasite which has been searching for a replicant female body attacks Nobuko and takes her body as its host before attacking Kazuyuki. Shinichi receives a call from his father warning him about his mother, but he is shocked when she arrives home and pierces Shinichi through the chest. After Nobuko leaves, Migi merges into Shinichi's body to seal the hole inside of his heart and saves his life. Shinichi is informed that his father is in the hospital and vows to kill the parasite controlling his mother. On his way there, he meets Makiko Hayase, a young student working at an inn near the hospital. At the hospital, Shinichi becomes angry when his father denies seeing a monster take his mother, and he realizes it is because his father is unable to face the truth. Shinichi stays at the nearby inn where Makiko works, while planning to find the parasite responsible for his mother's death. Miki explains to Shinichi that since repairing his heart, its senses are inoperative while asleep. The following day, Migi senses a parasite nearby, and Shinichi runs towards the end of the seawall where he sees someone who may be responsible for Nobuko's death. Shinichi meets Mamoru Uda, a human who has a parasite fused into his jaw, which saved him from drowning after he fell off a cliff. Shinichi tells Mamoru how he first encountered Migi, and how his father ended up in the hospital. Later, Migi explains to Shinichi that it had scattered cells throughout his body to close the heart wound, which explains his physiological changes. Mamoru senses Nobuko and Shinichi heads in her direction. However, Migi falls asleep after morphing into a scythe, leaving Shinichi to fight by himself. Mamoru is badly wounded by Nobuko, and Shinichi arrives to fight Nobuko alone. Nobuko wounds Shinichi, but Mamoru executes a surprise attack, killing Nobuko. After saying goodbye to Makiko, Shinichi returns to school. The heavily pregnant Ryoko assigns a parasite-controlled host to impersonate a student and keep an eye on Shinichi. Mitsuo suspects that Kana has a crush on Shinichi and picks a fight with him, but Shinichi uses his newfound strength to easily defend himself. Satomi observes that Shinichi has changed since his return, especially when he throws a dead puppy into a garbage bin. However, later, when Shinichi realizes that he has begun thinking like Migi, he gives the puppy a proper burial. At school, Shinichi encounters Hideo Shimada, the parasite sent by Ryoko disguised as a transfer student. However, Migi doesn't detect Hiedo as a threat. Kana believes she detects Shinichi approaching, but it is Hideo instead. Shinichi arrives and warns Hideo to stay away from his friends, although Shinichi acknowledges that she has the ability to sense wavelengths of some types of people. Hideo wonders why Shinichi cannot always sense his presence, and thinks his parasite may have a weakness. Takizawa, the chief of police, interviews Shinichi's father, Kazuyuki, about the parasite which attacked his mother, Nobuko. Kazuyuki confirms her likeness in Parasite's form in a sketch drawn by Haruki Tachikawa, a criminal profiling illustrator and older brother of Yuko. Yuko has become suspicious of Hideo, and later she witnesses Hideo becoming hit by a baseball but remaining uninjured. While attempting to patch things up with Satomi, Shinichi is interrupted by Migi, who senses Hideo preparing to take on Mitsuo and his gang. Shinichi dismisses Hideo and warns the gang and its leader, Yano, to leave Hideo alone. Later, Satomi maintains her distance because of Shinichi's changed personality. Meanwhile, Yuko follows Hideo and discovers his ability to change his face, and shares her knowledge with her brother, Haruki. The next day, Yuko confronts Hideo about his identity in the art classroom while keeping a bottle of paint thinner close at hand for protection. Yuko throws a bottle of paint thinner at Hideo when he attacks her, then jumps out the window to safety. The chemical causes Hideo to lose his mind and enter into an uncontrolled killing spree. An evacuation is initiated, but Shinichi re-enters the school where he finds Satomi alive and takes her off campus to safety. Migi senses Hideo is on the rooftop, so Shinichi travels to the roof of another building 300 meters away, where Migi helps him throw a rock through Hideo's chest, killing him. In the aftermath, 17 victims, including students, teachers, and policemen, are reported massacred by Hideo. At a high-level government meeting, they decide to keep the existence of parasites a secret. A scientist named Dr. Yui reports that parasites can be identified by plucking hair from anywhere on the body to ascertain its physiology, because the hair stays alive for a short time. Consequently, a new form of greeting becomes popular, pulling out a strand of each other's hair. Shinichi finally patches things up with Satomi after she thanks him for saving her. Shinichi hesitates to tell Kana the truth about his condition, although she can detect his presence. However, when Satomi questions Kana about Shinichi's change in personality, Kana denies noticing any difference. Meanwhile, a parasite named Goto, disguised as a male wearing gym clothing, murders 22 armed members of a Yakuza organization as an experiment to test his fighting ability without resorting to parasite weaponry. Shinichi feels that Migi truly has merged with him, especially while out on a date with Satomi when he experiences pain in his chest after seeing a mother about to slap her disobedient child. Kana becomes dejected after she witnesses Shinichi kissing Satomi goodbye after a date. Later, Migi senses 8 parasites at Takeshi Hirokawa's mayoral campaign promoting environmentalism. Although Hirokawa detects Shinichi's presence, Migi cannot identify the politician's motives. Shinichi and Migi discuss possibilities of why Hirokawa might be running for mayor and conclude that it would be to create a safe haven for parasites. Shinichi encounters Kana and becomes concerned that her ability may place her in danger. He arranges to meet her in an abandoned building while Migi is asleep and explains about the parasites and Migi. But after she brushes it off as a joke, he promises to show Migi to her one day. Later, Migi reveals to Shinichi that Kana emits a rather weak signal detectable by parasites, meaning that they can also seek her out. Shinichi convinces Migi to reveal his true form when planning to meet with Kana, but he cancels the meeting after detecting parasites. Kana then assumes that Shinichi will be at the abandoned building again. So again, she uses her instincts to track him. but instead she finds a parasite who attacks her. The parasite stabs Kana through her chest just as Shinichi arrives. Shinichi rips out the host's heart in a blind rage, and Kana dies in Shinichi's arms. At her funeral, Shinichi appears calm, placing his humanity in question. The newly elected mayor, Hirokawa, holds a meeting of parasites concerning the incident of the rogue parasite which killed Kana and Reiko Tamura, formerly Ryoko Tamiya, and suggests Shinichi is involved. Reiko hires a private investigator named Shiro Katamori to follow Shinichi and arranges for a group of thugs to attack Shinichi in the hope of revealing Shinichi's right hand. But the attempt fails. Meanwhile, Satomi is still unsettled about Shinichi's behavior. At night, Komori follows Shinichi, who returns to the abandoned building to mourn for Kana's death. Kuramori sees Migi, who attempts to kill him, but Shinichi restrains Migi, which allows Kuramori to escape. The next day, Migi and Shinichi watch footage on Kuramura's video camera, and they realize Shinichi is being watched. Days later, Shinichi sees the wounded Kuramori still following him. Shinichi meets Satomi to tell her about the truth about himself, but then hesitates, which drives a deeper wedge between them. Shinichi seeks out Mamoru Uda to help capture and interrogate Kuramori. Meanwhile, when Kuramori tells Reiko that he was attacked by Shinichi's right hand, she says she cannot believe him and terminates his services. Shinichi and Mamoru abduct Kuramori to take him to the abandoned building, where Shinichi explains the events leading to Kana's death. Kuramori is still suspicious until Migi physically threatens him and reveals that his employer, Reiko, is a parasite. The next day, Shinichi meets Reiko on the roof of a university after she attends a lecture on aspects of human behavior. She explains that she is interested in the evolution of parasites, from a dependence on killing and eating humans to form a coexistence, but an unequal one. Shinichi chances upon a fortune teller, who says that he must find the person who put a hole in his heart to achieve closure, but he laughs at the fact that he killed that person, his mother. Hirokawa has been securing dining areas for the parasites who are a part of his cabal. Shinichi is taken to the basement of a parking garage, where they witness the parasite Kawada murder an innocent woman before Shinichi and Migi can act. Kuramori records video footage of Shinichi and Migi defeating Kawada in an intense battle. However, Kuramori decides to get rid of all the video footage and withdraw from investigating parasites. Shinichi vows to kill the parasites one by one. Meanwhile, Hirokawa sees Shinichi as a threat because of his intervention in the parking garage, and he enlists Goto to dispose of Shinichi. Shinichi detects 3 parasites approaching with the intention to kill him, but Migi falls asleep. So Shinichi goes on the run for 4 hours waiting for Migi to wake up. A parasite sent by Hirokawa manages to catch up with Shinichi just as Migi awakens, and detects that 3 parasites share the same body, called Miki. Miki is too strong for Shinichi and Migi, so Shinichi runs into the woods. They manage to decapitate Miki only to discover that Miki is a part of Goto, who is composed of 5 parasites hosted in the limbs and the head. Shinichi flees by hitching a ride and manages to ward off Goto with Migi's help. Shinichi hears a news report that Kuramori's office is burned and his family is killed, so he calls his father, warning him to leave the house because he might get targeted. Meanwhile, the traumatized Kuramori is interrogated by Detective Hirama, who knows about the parasites. Reiko berates the 3 members of Hirokawa's cabal, Kusano, Hikawa, and Masewa, who killed Komori's wife and daughter, but failed to kill their target, Kuramori. They in turn mistrust her, because she sees humans as a race much stronger than they assumed. Kuramori tracks down Reiko at night, but she is soon surrounded by Kusano, Hikawa, and Masewa, who plan to eliminate her. Reiko kills Hikawa and Masewa separately by secreting a fragment of herself inside each of them, and then she outsmarts Kusano, also killing him. Reiko returns home and finds that her son has been kidnapped by Kuramori. He left a note for him to meet at the park, and Reiko contacted Shinichi to meet her there as well. Satomi, worried about Shinichi, tries to follow Reiko, but loses track of her. When Reiko arrives at a bridge in the park, Kuramori threatens to throw her son to his death, accusing her of being a cold-blooded monster. However, Reiko stabs Kuramori and retrieves her son before Kuramori falls backwards over the railing. Detective Hirama reaches the dying Kuramori, who identifies Reiko before he passes away. As it begins to snow, Shinichi comes face to face with Reiko. Reiko tells Shinichi how her research has shown that parasites and humans are part of a single biosystem, and that parasites depend on humans to survive. Reiko is accused of being a parasite and of Kuramori's murder. Hirama and his men open fire, repeatedly shooting at Reiko until her body is riddled with bullets. Reiko slowly approaches Shinichi and entrusts him with her son before she dies. As Reiko's life fades away, Shinichi recalls his friends who have died. For the first time in a long time, tears fill his eyes just as Satomi arrives to see Shinichi show emotion again. In an attempt to determine if Shinichi is a parasite, Hirama takes him to an interrogation room, where he's brought face to face with Uragami, a prisoner and serial killer who claims that he can discern parasites. Much to Hirama's frustration, Uragami does not detect anything inhuman deep in Shinichi's eyes. At a police meeting, an upcoming operation to eliminate the parasites is announced, and the new police tactical officer, Yamagishi, is assigned to command with Hirama to provide support. Hirama suggests using Uragami to help identify parasites, but Yamagishi declines, as he considers the operation simply pest control. Shinichi returns to school as the year comes to an end, and while talking with Satomi, he's approached by Hirama, who enlists him to help with the operation, which saddens Satomi. Following earlier advice from Migi, Shinichi advises Yamagishi to use flamethrowers as a tactical weapon against parasites to disrupt the connection between a parasite and its host. However, Yamagishi decides that his forces will target the heart. Yamagishi's assault force surrounds the town hall, which he suspects contains a number of parasites, and his squad begins evacuating civilians from the building in small groups. Yamagishi's forces use high-end equipment to scan for parasites among the humans as they leave the building, and they detect one in a female host. Yamagishi's squad singles out a woman detected as a parasite and shoots her through the heart with a high-powered shotgun, effectively killing her. However, Hirokawa and the parasites detect the trap, and 2 parasites exit the building, causing the squad to open fire, damaging the high-tech scanning equipment housed in a van. Yamagishi and his assault squad enter the lobby to shoot down the parasites but also sacrifice human lives, which gives Hirokawa and the Cabal the opportunity to slip away. Yamagishi splits up his forces to pursue parasites hiding within the building, and takes Uragami with him. After encountering parasites, he orders the assault squad to kill anyone found on the upper floors, prioritizing the elimination of parasites over the lives of civilians. Some squad members encounter Goto, who uses his unique powers to easily absorb their lead pellets and fire them back, wiping out the squad. Another squad storms the auditorium, where they find Hirokawa waiting for them. Hirokawa accuses humans of being the infection of the earth through pollution and overpopulation, and of being predators because they cannot accept parasites living among them. He's shot dead by the squad members, but they are surprised to discover that he is a human and not a parasite. Goto enters the auditorium and easily wipes out all the assault squad members. Meanwhile, Uragami shoots Hirama's partner, Katsuma, and makes his escape. Yamagishi's squad catches up with Goto but is unable to defeat him, and they retreat to the rooftop, where Yamagishi is the last to die. Goto encounters Shinichi on the streets below and vows to kill him before leaving the area, appearing tired. The next day, Shinichi skips school but is driven into despair, imagining Goto's face on everyone he encounters in the streets. Shinichi breaks down when Satomi visits him outside his house, and he runs away, but she later finds him on the playground. She invites him to her house where they make love, which renews his will to survive. Soon, Migi detects Goto in pursuit, so Shinichi and Migi attempt to kill Goto by crashing a car into him as he drives along a cliff road, but he survives. They then try to ambush Goto in a forest where Migi separates from Shinichi for a surprise attack. Their plan fails and Migi sacrifices himself to enable Shinichi to escape, leaving Shinichi heartbroken. Shinichi is taken in by an old woman named Mitsuyo, who lets him stay at her house for a few days, during which time he finds that there is still part of Migi within his body. When nearby villages inform Mitsuyo that a villager was killed and dismembered, Shinichi realizes that Goto was responsible. Shinichi tells Mitsuyo about Goto and decides to confront the parasite on his own. Mitsuyo tells him to avoid throwing his life away, and sends him off with a rusty old cleaver, wishing him good luck. Shinichi hunts Goto in the forest at night and finds him sleeping, but Goto wakes up just as Shinichi prepares to kill him. Shinichi is no match for Goto and takes a savage beating, but he eventually manages to pierce Goto's body with a metal pipe from a local illegal dump of toxic waste. When Goto attempts to strike Shinichi, a fragment of Migi emerges from Shinichi's right arm and counters the blow, reuniting with the rest of himself that had been absorbed by Goto. Infected with toxins from the metal pipe, the other parasites within Goto's body rebel, seeking to survive but giving Migi an opportunity to destroy the body. Goto's body tries to regenerate its component parts, and Shinichi is left with the decision between letting Goto live or die. Shinichi is reluctant to kill Goto, but he eventually decides to destroy Goto's body for the sake of humanity. A year after the town hall battle, the mincemeat murders have stopped, and there have been no sightings of parasites. In a dream, Shinichi is saddened when Migi bids him farewell to go into a type of hibernation, but he then wakes up with a restored right hand. While on a date with Satomi, Shinichi contemplates how it's contradictory for humans to love the earth without loving themselves. Later, Uragami appears and abducts Satomi, taking her to the roof of a building. When Shinichi catches up with them, Uragami explains how humanity is filled with monsters and that Shinichi lies halfway between humans and parasites. Satomi expresses that she finally understands Shinichi as a person. Shinichi races towards Uragami, who pushes Satomi over the edge. Migi appears in Shinichi's mind and tells him that he should do the holding now. Shinichi finds his right hand holding Satomi's left hand, and he pulls her up. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you at the next one.